back, Kristyn, Buetow. I thought I remembered. She was here, I think it was in January, might have been a little earlier, but she's with Biz Recycling and also Waste Wise. And she came before and gave us a wonderful presentation on recycling and how to do it better. And I was very pleased to see all the questions that came up. Because you're like me, sometimes you're not so sure what to do. But now we got this grant, which we'll probably talk a little bit about that. We had this grant and we've spent about $8,000 worth so far out of the 10,000. And so on Friday, a bunch of us were here putting labels on new canisters and bins and various things, and you're going to hear more about that today. So we've got a new recycling put in place, and she's going to tell us about it, and we'll do a little practice, and hopefully we'll be better recyclers. Thank you.
All righty. So I'm Kristyn. I work for Minnesota Waste Wise. Carol did a great introduction. And tomorrow is Earth Day, if you guys didn't know. So this is kind of like an all-in-one Earth Day. We set up a new system here. So big extravaganza for waste reduction today. I'm going to do a quick presentation about recycling, organics recycling, and then we'll do a quick little sorting game. And let's save questions for the end, just because usually if there's a question that comes up, I answer it later in the presentation. So we'll save those for the end. Feel free to write them down if you forget. Alrighty. So to start out, I work for Minnesota Waste Wise. You guys heard the spiel last time. It's a lot of repeat folks that are here, which is great. We administer grants for businesses I work in Ramsey and Washington County. And for example, you guys are one of the businesses that I work with. And so I helped you guys secure some grant funding with the help of lovely other Kristyn from the office. And we spent about $8,000 on some new recycling program updates. And like Carol said, we still have about 2,000 left over. So if you have any fun ideas for waste reduction items that we can apply for, let me or the other Kristyn know. And we'll get started on the things that we added for the program. So this is the stuff that we got through the grant that we have now purchased and implemented, and now it's time for you guys to start using them. So first off, we did paired, color-coded, and labeled bins. So you'll notice that almost every single bin in here, if you find one that's not the paired, color-coded, or labeled, let me know, we'll swap it out, are now color-coded. So blue is for recycling, green is for organics recycling, black or gray is for trash. Labeled, they all should have labels on them, and then paired means that they're all next to each other. So we introduced this new stream called organics recycling today. I'm going to talk about it, but just letting you know, if you see that green bin, that's not there on accident. We did that on purpose. Next up is compostable products. So you guys were kind of already using these, but now we actually have the right place to put those in. Compostable products, and I'll go into detail about this later, are basically these items that are made out of plant starches that you can put into the organics recycling bin. So instead of throwing, plastic things into the trash, we're throwing these compostable products into the organics recycling bin. And then we have two streams to dispose of the organics recycling. The first is compost bin for the Sacred Settlement neighbors. All of their food scraps and stuff like that is going to go into the compost bin that we have out back for the garden. And then everything that happens within the church's walls is going into the organics recycling bin, which gets hauled away by Walters. So quick refresh on blue bin recycling, single stream recycling. We talked about this last time, but just to give you guys a quick reminder, I'm going to talk a lot about recycling today, but recycling is not the only solution to the waste problem. It's actually not even the most preferred solution to the waste problem. So I'm sure you guys have all heard the phrase reduce, reuse, recycle. It's in that order for a reason. So we prefer reduce the most, and then below that is reuse. And then recycle is the third most preferred option. And then just below that is compost. But obviously all of these four things are a lot better than throwing things away. So just keep in mind as we think about Earth Day and things like that, that recycling is a great way to, support the planet, but it's even better to, not buy things in the first place or increase the lifespan of the things that we do buy. So just the things that can go into your blue recycling bin, and this is the same for at your house and for at church. The rules really don't change much within the state of Minnesota. They vary a little bit by county, but not by much. So you can assume that anything I say here is the same for at home, unless you happen to live in Iowa, Nebraska, another state. So the things that we can put into the blue recycling bin: cardboard, make sure that it's flattened. Mixed paper, that includes glossy paper, envelopes, things like that. Rigid plastic containers labeled 1, 2, and 5. So this is that little number that you see on the bottom of plastic containers. It's really tiny. So you got to get your cheaters out. That's totally fine. But you just look at the bottom of the plastic container and you look at that little number that's inside that triangle symbol. And we're looking for numbers 1, 2, and 5. So if it's a number 1, a 2, or a 5, you can put that into the blue recycling bin. If it's not one of those numbers, we're going to put it into the trash. Fun way to remember this is on your left hand. If you count out 1, 2, and 5, you put down the other fingers. It makes the I love you symbol in ASL. So we can say, I love recycling plastic. I'm gonna look at my fingers. Oh, 1, 2, and 5 are recycled. Glass bottles and jars can be recycled. Make sure that we keep the lids on those, even if it's a metal jar, even if it's a metal lid, even if it's a plastic lid, keeping the lids on those items. Metal cans and bottles, make sure that we're not crushing these. You want everything to be in its original shape. And cartons are good to recycle. So soup cartons, milk cartons, things like that. Okay. And then just some kind of tips for recycling. So the first of all is to avoid wish cycling. So this is the idea that we want something to be recyclable, so we're going to put it into the blue bin. But just because we put it in the blue bin doesn't mean that it actually can be recycled. Okay, so trying to be aware of the things that actually can be processed and turned into new products, and only putting those things into the bin. So if we're not sure something can be recycled, it's actually better to put it in the trash than to risk, contaminating a load of recyclables by throwing, some food waste in there because you think it can be recycled, and we're going to contaminate all of those things that actually can be recycled. But I do acknowledge that this kind of promotes throwing things into the trash, which we're trying to move away from. So an alternative to this is, when in doubt, find out. So when in doubt, throw it out is if you're not sure something's recyclable, put it in the trash. Something that I like to promote is when in doubt, find out. If you're not sure if something is recyclable, it's really easy to just Google, is this recyclable? Just make sure that you have some sense of location on that. So is this recyclable? And then whatever county you're in, or is this recyclable Minnesota? And by the way, aerosol cans are not recyclable. Plastic bags should not go into your blue recycling bin ever. This is a hard stop. No putting plastic bags into the blue recycling bin. You can take them to a special drop-off at, Cub, Target, Kohl's, places like that, where they take those bags and they take them to a special plastic bag recycling place that only does plastic bags. The reason they're not recyclable in the blue bin is because there's a series of gears that turn and the bags get caught up in those gears, and they have to shut down the recycling facility for 2 hours every day to cut those bags out. That's 2 hours that recycling isn't being processed there. So the recycling facility that your blue bin goes to is not meant to process plastic bags. If you take them to a plastic bag drop off, that's totally fine. Anything bigger than your fist can be recycled. So anything smaller than your fist is literally going to fall through the cracks at the recycling facility. And so we want to make sure that everything is at least bigger than your fist that you're putting into the blue bin. For balls of tinfoil and things like that, it's okay to ball it up. It's just we want it to be bigger than your fist. So fun little art project for you guys is, if you ever have like just a little bit of tinfoil, you can just build a little pile on your kitchen counter and keep adding tinfoil to it until it's bigger than your fist. Keep caps on bottles. So very similar to the last message, caps are smaller than your fist. They'll fall through the cracks of the recycling facility. If you drink your drink, it's empty, put that cap back on. That way that cap will be captured and it'll ride through the recycling process with that bottle, because the bottle's bigger than your fist. Empty containers at least spoon clean. You do not have to run your recyclables through the dishwasher. You do not have to involve any water in rinsing them out. Just take a spoon, try to get as much out of there as you can, and that is totally good to put in the recycling bin. If we think about things like peanut butter jars that are kind of hard to get out, we like to recommend giving them to your dog if you have one. But besides that, like yogurt containers, just spoon clean is totally fine. And then, like I mentioned before, rigid plastic containers, and rigid means nothing soft or crinkly. We don't want grape bags, we don't want plastic bags, things like that. We want rigid, hard containers like this. And then with that little number on the bottom, we want it to be a 1, 2, or a 5. So now we're gonna talk about organics recycling. And I'm going to use the phrase compost interchangeably with organics recycling, although they do have two different meanings. So compost is a low temperature process over 2 to 3 months. And this is in your backyard, you have a pile of leaves, food scraps, eggs, things like that. And you're gonna turn that yourself and you're gonna turn it into a nice compost that you're gonna put into your garden. It stays here, it doesn't go to another place. Organics recycling is kind of this fancy word where you take your organics, you put it into a green bin, which gets picked up by the organics recycling truck, and they take it to a facility. And at that facility, the food scraps and everything else in that bin gets put into a huge pile called a windrow. And then over the course of at least 6 months, those piles get air pumped into them. It stimulates a lot of microbacterial activity, breaks down those things, and then the micro bacteria, they eat all the food scraps and then they actually poop out this really nutrient dense compost. So that's kind of the end product is compost. The difference is the temperature and the time. And because of those two things, we can't put the same items in compost that we can in organics recycling. So compost, we're not going to put any meat, we're not going to put any dairy, we're not going to put anything raw in there. With organics recycling, throw it all in, okay? We've got meat, we've got dairy, we've got grass trimmings, we've got basically anything that can rot is gonna go into the organics recycling bin. So with compost, we're gonna be a little more careful because there's not, the heat and the air being pumped into there to stimulate that activity. So currently in the state of Minnesota, about 1/3 of everything that's in our trash can be composted or can be put in the organics recycling bin. And so this is a big opportunity to kind of shift our habits because we're already producing 1/3 of compostable items. We're just not putting it in the right bin. So that's kind of what this training is to help with, is trying to capture those things from the trash and moving them over to the organics recycling bin. Something that's really important to note is here in Ramsey County, there's a 70% tax on all trash, but a 0% tax on regular recycling and organics recycling. And this is for businesses and for apartment buildings. Okay, so not for your house. But that's a really big tax that we have on trash. And so anything that we can move from the trash bin to the organics recycling or the recycling bin is instantly going to be cost savings. So something to keep in mind when we're here at church, we're getting taxed 70% here. That's 70%. So really trying to, be conscientious of what we're putting in the trash and trying to save some money on that. So I kind of described it a little bit, but the organics recycling process works by taking your food scraps, the things that can go into that bin, putting them into the green bin here at church or wherever you are, and then that gets taken out back to a big dumpster. The truck picks it up and takes it to an organics recycling facility, gets put into those long piles and gets broken down into a nutrient dense soil additive, or kind of like a fertilizer. This stuff is called black gold. It really helps plants grow. It's really great. And then that gets sold to people. So if you go to any of these compost facilities, they usually have a store attached to them where you can buy compost. It's not as cyclical, where if you have compost in your backyard, you obviously have access to the end product. So here it's not as cyclical where you don't get the soil back once you donate. And then that gets used to grow more plants, more food. And then we continue the process by putting that food into the organics recycling bin. And this can continue on and on and on. So there's some specific things that could go into the green bin, and we want to be really careful that we're putting the right things into this bin, because recycling facilities have a lot of high-tech robots that sort through these things. In organics recycling, it basically just gets dumped into a pile, and anything that's not compostable or can be broken down is just going to live in that pile until it gets picked out at the very end. Okay, so there's not a whole lot of vetting that happens in this process, so we want to make sure that we're doing that up front. First of all, with organics recycling, any and all food scraps. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's been cooked, it doesn't matter that it's a little bit gross. Anything processed foods can go into the green organics recycling bin. And that includes meat, dairy, cheese, things like that. Food, soiled, and non-recyclable paper. So I mentioned earlier with the waste hierarchy, recycling is better than composting. So if we have a piece of paper, I would rather have you put it in the blue recycling bin than into the organics bin, because in the recycling bin, it's going to get turned back into paper. In the organics bin, it's going to get turned into soil. So that just goes for like typical office paper. When we're talking about things like egg cartons, those kind of pulpy ones, and then just like really greasy kind of bags, things that you wouldn't really want. What I think in my head is like, if you see that really greasy bag, like, would I want to write on a piece of paper that's been recycled from this bag? And the answer is usually no. But if it's just like a clean office paper, totally fine to recycle that. And then also things like napkins and paper towels, Kleenexes, things like that. Organics recycling bin, those cannot be recycled. And then lastly, pizza boxes. So this is kind of a gray area where pizza boxes can either go into the blue recycling bin or the organics recycling bin. The differentiation is how dirty it is. So if we see like a really grimy, greasy, cheesy pizza box, we're gonna put that in the organics recycling bin. If it's got a little bit of grease and not a whole lot of food residue, we'll put that into the blue recycling bin. Because like I said, recycling is better than composting. But we don't want to put things that should go into the compost bin into the recycling bin. And then other kind of miscellaneous things, coffee filters can be put in the green bin, tea bags, just make sure we take out that little staple on them. And then wood stuff like stir sticks, toothpicks, and a small amount of, like plants and grass trimmings and things like that. Usually we want those in the yard waste pile, but if you have like a few dead flowers, you can put them into the organics bin. And then kind of those low quality paper products like Q-tips and cotton swabs can go into the organics recycling bin. This is kind of a tricky one, so I'm going to train you a little bit on what can and can't go into this bin. So I mentioned compostable products before. The difference between compostable products and non-compostable products is what they're made out of. So compostable products are made out of plant starches. They work and function just like regular plastic. So this is an example of a compostable product. It looks a lot like a regular coffee cup, right? But this is made out of a plant starch. It's made out of corn and soy byproduct. And this breaks down completely in the organics recycling bin. This does not recycle. This does not go to the recycling facility. They don't want this. They don't want plant starches in the recycling facility. They want plastic there. Okay, so there are a few things that we're looking for with these products to be able to identify if they're made out of plant starches or if they're made out of plastic. The number one thing that will tell you if it is compostable or not is if it has this BPI certified logo on it. So that's this green one in the middle. That is a third-party certification. They don't make any money from this, and they basically just do lab testing all day to see, does this actually break down? So if we see that logo, you are guaranteed that that can be composted and you can put that into the green organics recycling bin. Something else we're looking for is if on the bottom of it where the number would normally be for plastic, it says PLA on there. That stands for polylactic acid, fancy word for plant starch. That's the type of plastic it is, the bioplastic that it is. And then if it says compostable in an industrial composting facility, so this means they've tested this, it can break down in those facilities, that is good to put into the green bin. What we're not going to put into the green bin is things that are lying to you and telling you that they're compostable. So there's a lot of businesses that make a lot of money on pretending that things are compostable, because compostable products are more expensive than regular products. They can upcharge if they say that it's eco-friendly and convince you that it's compostable, even if it's not. So some red flags to look for, things that we're not going to put into the green bin, are if it says biodegradable, made from plants, ethically sourced, all natural, eco-friendly, green, these things that don't really have a lot of merit or claims behind them. If you see something that's vague, we're not going to put it into the green bin, okay? And so just want you guys to be on the lookout for these products, because they do certainly exist, and they make it intentionally very tricky for you to identify compostable versus non-compostable products. Here at church, you can assume that everything is compostable. So I've vetted everything that we've bought for the compostable products. They're all BPI certified. you are good to go. But this is more so applicable to you're in a coffee shop, you're buying stuff for your house and you're composting. We're really going to be looking for that BPI certification. And then to clarify, we are going to be composting and organics recycling stuff that's produced here at the church. So if we have donuts and coffee and things like that after church or events and funerals, what we're not going to be doing here is accepting everyone else's compost. So there is a drop-off site just down the road on Dale. It's like 3 minutes away. I drove past it on the way here. For free, they will accept all of your compostable items. They provide free compostable bags. This is for the compost that you're producing at your house. So if you currently compost, if you want to start composting and you live in Roseville or somewhere in Ramsey County, or honestly in any metro county, they have these really cool drop-off sites where rather than having them haul stuff from your house, you just drive to the site, drop off your stuff, and then you're done with it. It's free. There's no charge to set up. You literally just go there, drop stuff off and leave. It's very like super laid back. I do it at my apartment. It's very chill. And yeah, it's free. And like I mentioned, here we're paying to get this stuff hauled away. It's costing money for the church. So we're not going to be accepting people's stuff from their house. There's also a big differentiation in the waste industry of we don't want business waste mixing with household waste. So these sites are meant for household waste. The church here is a business. The hauling is meant for businesses. So we're not going to be coming to church with a big sack of compostable products. You can definitely drop stuff off at the Dale location on your way to church, super convenient. Otherwise, they have these drop-off sites for if you're a Ramsey County resident. And then if you aren't a Ramsey County resident, a quick Google search of, food scraps drop off near me or food scraps drop off, whatever county you live in, there's almost always going to be a food scraps drop off for you. That's free. And some of them have free compostable bags. Okay, now we're going to play a sorting game. So the 3 options that I'm going to present, I'm going to show an item and then I want you to shout out which bin you think it goes into. So you can either say recycling, blue, organics, green, or trash. And be loud and proud, okay? It's okay to be wrong. First off, starting off easy, plastic bottle. Recycling, yep. You can almost always be guaranteed that a plastic water bottle is recyclable. They're almost always #1 plastics. Yeah, Carol?
But there's those really thin ones that aren't.
I was giving blood a couple weeks ago on Good Friday. And how, when you give blood now, they give you water bottles that have that real thin plastic, that crinkly. There's no number on the bottom, and I happened to be sharing a snack afterward with somebody who says his wife works for Waste Management, and he was complaining how people are always throwing those into recycling, thinking they're recyclable, but they're not, because they're too light. There's not enough plastic in them. There's no number on the bottom. And I think I'm one of those that automatically just recycling.
Okay, I should clarify. If it feels like a regular plastic bottle, it can go into the blue recycling bin. If it feels then a little bit off, we're gonna look for that number. Food scraps.
Organic.
Aluminum can. Recycle. And we're not gonna step on this. We're not gonna crumple it up. One of my favorite hobbies in college was like stepping on cans. It's so fun. And then I realized that you can't do that. So basically the reason you can't is the recycling facility sorts things based on their size, shape, and density. So when we are crushing this can, we're changing the shape of it. And things are being sorted, they have a bunch of robots that detect the shape of an item. This is getting flattened. It might be mistaken for paper, which is flat. So we want everything to be in its original shape. We're not crumpling up water bottles. We're not crushing cans, things like that. Unless you will have like a Boy Scouts like donation thing that is only taking aluminum cans that you're putting into a trailer, you can crush those, that's fine. But if we're putting it in our blue bin, we're never crushing them. Recycling. Eco-friendly, plant-based products.
Organic.
No.
Oh, eco.
These are going in the trash. I didn't trick you guys. There's no BPI certification on those, so we're looking for this green symbol here that proves that it's actually an organic material, okay? So we're not gonna be tricked by this false advertising. So next up, I kind of gave it away. BPI certified products. This goes in the organics, yep. Good job. So we're looking for that logo over on the side. Anything here at church, we are guaranteed that that can go into the green bin. This is more so when you're out in the real world, you don't have me and other Kristyn to vet these products. Paper and cardboard. Recycling. Cardboard, we're flattening it. Glossy paper, magazine paper, totally fine to be recycled. Okay, pizza boxes, we're gonna go with number 1 first. What do we think about number 1? Yeah, that is totally fine. It's a little bit of grease. Like I said, like when we're thinking about whether this goes into recycling and organics, think about, would I want to write on a piece of paper that's made out of this pizza box?
Yeah.
Number 2. Organics. Yeah, this is pretty gross. I wouldn't want to write on a piece of paper that's made out of that box. And this is kind of a judgment call. So this is a weird gray area in this, and it's your call of if it's really grimy, greasy, cheesy, we're gonna put that in the organics recycling. If you're at home and you don't have organics recycling and you don't want to take food scraps to a drop off, put this in your trash, the grimy one. Paper waxy cups.
Trash.
Yeah, these are trash. These are trash. They are made out of 2 items, so let's pretend like this isn't compostable. It's made out of a layer of paper and then a layer of wax on the inside. With recycling, we want things to be made out of one material. That makes it way easier to recycle them. The only exception to this is cartons. But with these, it's a really low quality paper that just isn't worth recovering at the recycling facility.
I have a question.
Yep.
They used to say something that came in a frozen, or you put in the freezer.
Freezer boxes are recyclable.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Put in the piece.
What about paper around the can? Like a labeled soup can or.
Oh, yeah,
vegetable
that's
can.
fine. That can be recycled.
So the paper and you don't have to remove the paper.
Mm-mm.
just-
No, yeah, I should clarify, like, if it's something that's bonded together, like, for example, if this wasn't compostable, these are like glued together. With that, the way that the recycling process works for aluminum or for tin cans, for soup cans, is it gets washed in a bunch of water before it gets recycled, and then that paper just comes off. Yeah, so not the same for this, these are glued and bonded together, that just kind of is sitting on there, so. Same for like yogurt containers, you don't have to take off the plastic layer on the outside. You can if you want to, it's kind of fun to feel like you're part of something, but it'll come off in the process. An egg carton,
Organics.
yeah, this is organics. So paper can be recycled about 5 to 6 times. These egg cartons are on, time number 5 or 6, so they physically cannot be recycled another time. When it looks kind of pulpy like that, it means that the fibers are so short they won't stick together. And so these go into the organics recycling bin.
What about the styrofoam?
Styrofoam ones go in the trash. Styrofoam is never recyclable in the state.
But there is a solution, you can bring them to church, we'll collect them to bring to Keystone.
Perfect, yeah, I was gonna
They'll
say.
reuse them at Keystone Community Services.
Perfect. Yeah, if you know a food shelf or a farmer that has chickens, there's a great opportunity for reuse for these. But we're not gonna be putting them into any bins. Yep,
There is a number 1 egg carton out there. Is that considered rigid enough?
yep, yeah, rigid is anything that like, it doesn't like crinkle or like crumple in your
Okay.
hand. So like, this is rigid, right? Yeah, that's good. Chewing gum, trash. Yep, there's some things we don't want in the organics recycling. Chewing gum is one of them. Cartons. Recycle. Yeah, these are a new addition to recycling. They used to not be recyclable. And then within this year, a bunch of carton producers said, hey, we should actually start recycling these. So they put a lot of money towards recycling infrastructure. And so now these are recyclable at facilities because there was marketing for them to be recyclable.
With the caps on.
With the caps on. Mhm. Paper towels and napkins. Organics, we're not putting these into the blue recycling bin. And it's okay if there's food on them. A big differentiation is, I said that a lot today. For blue recycling, we don't want any food on anything. For organics, throw the food on there, it's totally okay. So with a compostable product, let's say this is a bowl, you can leave, the leftover salad in there and throw it in the bin. We want more food in the organics recycling, we don't want any food in the blue recycling.
If there's cleaning chemicals on the paper towels?
That's fine, that's fine, as long as it's not like something crazy like bleach, those things get killed off in the process. Your containers, the one on the left is a number 6. What do you think about the one on the left? Trash, because it's not numbers 1, 2, or 5. Just kind of gave it away. What's the one on the right? Recycle, 'cause it's number 5.
So it's, and even like if it's a real small yogurt, like a little flatter, smaller, that's maybe less than your fist, you could still throw a 5 in. Or it wouldn't.
So the smaller than your fist rule supersedes the 1, 2, or 5 rule. Okay, so for every type of plastic, no matter what size it is, or no matter, whoa. For every type of plastic, you want it bigger than its fist, and then you want it to be a 1, 2, or 5. Does that make sense?
What about tin cans, like? They're little single serve cat food cans.
Yeah, those are just on the verge that I would say they're good to recycle.
So keep putting them in
Yep,
recycle, okay,
yep.
because that's what we use for cat.
Yeah, and a little tip for that, like I said, anything smaller than your fist won't be recycled. The lids on tin cans, we want those still connected to the can. So either like don't take it all the way off when you're opening your can, or if it does come off, a little tip is put it inside and then pinch the top a little bit so it stays inside of the can. Plastic bags and film. Trash, or you can take them to Cub or wherever and they can get recycled there. Yep.
What about the lids from home canning? Should they be trashed?
Those I would
Long as
reuse if you
this is a
can. And if you can't, ooh, that's a tough one. Yeah, I would say trash just because they're not attached to anything. Yeah, but if for some reason you're recycling, the can, the glass jar that it was on, attach it to the jar and recycle those together. But yeah, I would say try to find reuse opportunities for those when possible, just because they can't be canned again, doesn't mean you can't use them for other reasons. Okay, some just reminders and overview of what I talked about. Plastics number 1, 2, and 5 that are bigger than your fist can be recycled in your blue bin. Something I didn't talk about today because I talked about it in the last time, but just as a refresher, black plastic is not recyclable in the state of Minnesota. So the three rules for plastic: bigger than your fist, non-black plastic, 1, 2, and 5. The reason that black plastic can't be recycled is 2 reasons. The robots at some of the old facilities, a lot of them have updated, cannot differentiate the black plastic from the black conveyor belt. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is black plastic cannot be dyed into any lighter color. And so you're really limited in your options of who wants an only black plastic. And because it can only be dyed into black, usually black plastics have been recycled multiple times and just have been getting darker each time. And so it's kind of at its end of life. It's already been recycled multiple times, but you can reuse black plastics. Food scraps, compostable items, food soiled paper, other miscellaneous things can be composted in your green organics recycling bin here at church, or if you do food scraps drop off. To clarify, food scraps drop off is not just food scraps, it's these things as well: food soiled paper, pizza boxes, things like that. Only BPI certified compostable products can go into your green organics recycling bin. We're looking for this logo on them. We're assuming that anything in church can be put into your green organics recycling bin. You can compost at home and bring to a drop-off site. Anything that you generate here at church is totally fine to put in these bins, but we're not going to bring anything from home to the church. And then progress is better than perfection. There's no such thing as a perfect recycler. I do this for my job, and I'm definitely not a perfect recycler. So it's just about getting better, learning, continually Googling things to see if they're recyclable, and just learning from that process. It's better to keep getting better and progress than to be a perfect recycler. All right, that's all I have for you guys. What questions do you have for me? Yeah, Peter, yeah.
Can I go, cause I have to duck out?
Yeah.
My neighbor, consistently puts their recycling into tall plastic kitchen bags, the
Mhm.
most common thing I see. and when I say my neighbor, I am in an association of 62 townhomes. I think I am the only person who doesn't put his recycling into tall kitchen garbage bags.
Yeah,
How can what advice would you have for me to have my neighbors get on board with not using those kitchen bags?
yeah, I think a really big thing that you should be pushing is. They don't often do this, but sometimes if a recycling truck comes by and sees that all of your recycling is in a plastic bag, they'll close the container, put a sticker on it and not take it, and it goes to trash.
They are picking up that's the thing that
Yeah.
amazes me, and so there's this like wondering, does that all just go into the garbage stream then, and they aren't actually running it through?
Yeah, so usually the
sorting
first line
lines?
of defense at a MRF is people that pick stuff out. Because that line is moving so fast, if they see a plastic bag, they pull it and they throw it in the trash. So they're not gonna take the time to
Pulling
rip it
everything
open,
inside.
pull everything out.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a reminder of like, you are paying for recycling, but this is going to trash. Like you're wasting time putting everything into the bin because you're putting it in a plastic bag.
And can I ask a follow-up question? Not related to that, but related to our topic. The biggest challenge I imagine, one of the biggest challenges I imagine for this community of faith to adopt some of these new practices, it's gonna be the scenario I'm gonna describe to you now, which is I have my monthly role-playing game group that comes here on Tuesday evenings. And it's always somebody's job to bring a lovely dessert with, and that person feels obligated to bring some really fun decorated disposable plates and matching forks and some balloons that go with the theme.
Right,
What advice would you have for me and my monthly gathering of role-playing game players who love to have this sort of event?
yeah, I know it's tough because it's like the compostable products are great, but they're not very fashionable. I would just tell them that, you know, I'm assuming all those things are getting thrown away here in your guys' dumpster, that you're paying a 70% tax on everything that they're throwing away. So that's costing you guys money. Honestly, I would start being like, well, gotta give me 15 bucks to cover the cost of that.
I'm worried about the, like, I wanna make sure there's plates and
Right.
forks for my friends
Yeah.
to have their cake.
Yeah,
Can I be confident that there will be plates and forks here at the church for us to use?
yes.
This is a leading question. Of course, part of our grant helped us purchase a whole bunch of compostable, the right kind of stuff. And so the church is so well supplied with plates and forks and cups. You can trust that if you bring your group here on Tuesday night for a little get together and a party and you need disposable wares, you don't want to do a bunch of dishes, we have all the stuff.
Yeah,
And we will always have the stuff, so don't worry. And,
Where is the
you know,
stuff?
and what was the question?
Where?
Where's the stuff, Kristen?
So it's all in the kitchen. So
What, in the kitchen?
I know, crazy. So there's a big cupboard that has everything that you can use that can go into our green organics. So the other thing that we don't want is for you to bring plasticware, disposable items from home, use them for your group, and then leave additional items here.
Mhm.
So that is very common practice around here for people to bring stuff and then leave stuff.
Mhm.
So we want you to leave all of your stuff at home and use all of the products that we have on hand here. Because like Kristyn said, we're being very purposeful about purchasing products that are safe for us to use within our organic bins. The other thing that we have done too is we have reduced the size of our dumpster by half. And part of that is because of all of the products that we're using that are organic safe. And adding organics pickup, we're ultimately reducing the amount of trash that we're producing. So we really want to make sure that we're paying attention to what we're using, which bins we're putting them in, so that we have ample space within our trash for the trash that we do produce and for our organics that we're also producing as well.
yep. Yes,
Is it cheaper for manufacturers to use other plastics than 1, 2, and 5? And is it worthwhile to look at well, I don't buy detergent, things like that anymore, but ag products to see what the number is. Before you buy them.
Yeah, so a lot of producers tend to make things out of styrofoam or, plastic bag material because they often are cheaper. And a big push right now in the Minnesota legislature is to kind of put that responsibility on the producers rather than the consumers, because it's not your guys' fault that something is made out of a material. So there definitely is a policy push right now to shift things towards 1, 2, and 5 recyclable materials. But yeah, I think it's definitely like a choice for you guys to vote with your dollars. And if we're picking between two products and one might be a little bit more expensive, but it's something that you can recycle, it's definitely a conscious choice that you could be making.
What's an example of a 3 and 4?
Number 3 is PVC. And then number 4 is LDPE, which is like plastic bags material. Yeah. So there's numbers 1 through 7 for plastic resin number, what they're called, resin identification number. And number 1 is PET, which is plastic bottles. Number 2 is high density polyethylene, things like vinegar bottles, milk cartons. Number 3 is PVC. Number 4 is low density polyethylene, which is plastic bag material. Number 5 is polypropylene, which is like yogurt container. Number 6 is polystyrene, styrofoam. And number 7 is the other category, which is just anything else. And sometimes this is a little tricky. Sometimes compostable items are listed as a number 7. But we're looking for a number 7 with PLA written under it, not with other written under it. In the back.
Used oil and grease.
We do not want that in the organic recycling bin. Like if a food is greasy or made with grease, that's fine. If there's a little tiny bit of oil, you can put it into the green organics bin, but otherwise a trash bin, or there are some places that have like oil recycling. Like a lot of restaurants have oil recycling. But yeah, we're not putting that in the organics bin.
If you use a paper towel to wipe out the bottom of your frying pan.
That can be organics.
That's
Yep,
okay?
that's totally fine. Yes,
So if you have pill bottles,
yeah.
are they too small?
Like the standard pill bottle, I would say is too small, but if you have one of those like tall ones, that can be recycled. There's good opportunities for reuse. I don't know if you guys are in like buy nothing groups or things like that. Just posting like I have a bunch of empty pill bottles and people always have uses for them. That's what I do.
Can you put pill bottles inside bigger plastic bottles?
No, so that's called nesting. And we do not recommend it. It's just like, that's kind of a way to hack the recycling system, and it's actually designed that way because they want to know what everything is. You don't want to put like secret little mysteries inside of the recyclable items. And like I said, things get sorted based on their weight. And so if we're adding an extra thing into that item, it's going to change the weight, and they're not going to be sorted properly. So that's a good way to make sure that 2 things don't get recycled. Yeah.
So for your Tuesday party group that comes, and the really best option, would it be to use the dishes and silverware that is here?
Yes. So like I mentioned with the waste hierarchy, reduce, reuse, recycle, compost. So reuse is 2 pegs higher than compost. So it is so much better to use those dishes over and over and over again than to use those compostable items that you're throwing out. Yes, good point.
We do have a super awesome industrial dishwasher, if anyone wants a tutorial.
Yeah.
Happy to show you. Yes, there's something for dinner.
What about gift wrappings?
No. Gift wrapping cannot be recycled because it usually is a layer of paper with a layer of plastic on top of it, kind of glued together like these cups. There's also a lot of like glitter and foil, that those things are never recyclable. If you have like craft paper, which is like that kind of like paper bag material, and it's only craft paper, that can be recycled. Or if someone wraps something in like a paper bag, that can be recycled. But that's something that I struggle with because I love like cute wrapping paper. I think it's so fun. My solution that I found is just to get like reusable boxes that can be used year after year.
If it says
Boxes.
recyclable.
It's not recyclable. No, it's not. Yeah.
I look at that purposely.
Yeah, a better alternative than buying like recyclable stuff that looks like regular wrapping paper is to buy craft paper. They started making craft paper with patterns on it.
How about tissue paper?
Tissue paper cannot be recycled, so that is too thin. It can be reused. I save my tissue paper under my bed for different holidays. But yeah, and tissue paper actually could be put into the organics bin if it didn't have any glitter, foil, anything like that, you can put that in organics, but not recycling, it's too thin.
Newspapers too can be good wrapping.
Exactly, yes, and those can be recycled. Yeah.
Two questions, store receipts and, I've seen toothpaste tubes that have a
Mhm.
recycling symbol on it. And
Yeah,
I can't figure out how to clean something like that.
yeah, okay, so we'll start off with receipts, so receipts are heated with BPA, which kind of makes like this coating on them. Because it is two different items going together, it's paper and BPA, which is like a heat thing, because it's not good for us. Trash for receipts, I know. What was the other thing? Toothpaste, no, toothpaste cannot be recycled,
Even though some of them seem.
even
to
though
be
they have a,
touting that
even if
they
it
are.
says like big recycling symbol, please recycle me.
Yeah.
No, there's no way for the recycling facility to sort out a recyclable toothpaste tube from a non-recyclable toothpaste tube. There also just aren't end markets. Nobody wants to buy recycled toothpaste tubes to make new ones. And you can't clean them. Some of these companies that claim to be recyclable and have recyclable materials are actually only recyclable if you like mail it back to them. So you could look into that of like if they have somewhere on their website of like, mail it to us and we'll recycle it. You could definitely do that. Yeah,
The Reynolds parchment paper says compostable, is it?
no. Parchment paper is not recyclable. That is wax, right? And we don't want wax unless it's a carton. We don't want wax in the recycling bin. Yeah, it's basically a piece of paper with wax coated onto it. Like I said, we don't want things that are stuck together in the recycling bin. They make compostable stuff though, so
Yeah.
it's worth asking.
Are the thick water softener salt bags like Morphin? Can you bring them to store drop off?
I don't think you can bring them to store drop off. Those are made out of nylon. Or wait, no, I'm thinking of dog food bags. Those bags, if they're stretchy, any type of stretchy plastic can go into that plastic film recycling bin. So if it's a stretchy salt bag, you can put it into that bin.
Says number 4, it should be okay.
Yes. If it's the plastic recycling drop off at Cub, Target, Kohl's,
Lunds and Byers.
Lunds and Byers, not the blue bin. Okay, any stretchy plastic can go into plastic film drop off, not the blue recycling bin. Those will get tangled up in those.
Cause
Those conveyor belts.
I did bring some recently, I dropped some off into the store.
Yeah.
Drop off and, cause I don't know, I got this thought, well. I don't wanna put those in the trash anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a lot. Other questions? Okay. We've successfully rolled out all of the organics, recycling and trash bins. I was here on Friday. We got them all labeled, so I hope that this is very clear of what goes into each bin. If you have any questions, please ask Kristen, and if she doesn't know, which she probably will know, she can always ask me. And yeah, so best of luck with the organic recycling things. Yes, Kristen.
I wanna say one more thing, so just a reminder, all of our cold cups, all of our hot cups, all of those go in organics.
Mhm.
So like Kristen said, it's sometimes hard because they look like plastic, but they are actually compostable.
Mhm.
Along with all of the plastic silverware that we have now on site, all of that can be composted as well, so.
Yeah.
We're gonna continue to learn this together and figure out what we can and cannot do, but we're really excited about. Yeah, rolling this out, and so really grateful for Kristen and for all of her help in getting this up and running.
Yeah, assume that if something is here from church, it can be composted.
The coffee collar can also be placed in organics.
Or
in.
recycling. It's actually better to put that into the recycling bin. So sometimes it takes a little bit of, you stand in the bin and you're like, okay, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, but definitely worth it to recover as much as we can. All right, thank you for sitting. Happy early Earth Day. If you have any questions, you can finish with me.